Good evening, everyone. I'm Yatish, founder of Kuril Founders B School, the B School for entrepreneurs and family business. I welcome you to my show, as well as I welcome Professor Tupsakri Rajeev Chary. And today he will be speaking on HR analytics and business impact. I hope the people who are going to watch or going to see later will enjoy the session and let us know your feedback. If you have any question and answer, you can put up right on the comments column. Thank you very much. So, Professor, I please tell us about yourself, and you can start the session.
Thank you very much, Sri Yatish ji, for giving me this opportunity today. And I welcome all my prospective students here and hope for an interesting session today. Myself, Rajeev Tupsakri Chary, and I have over 25 years of experience. I have done my mechanical engineering from Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur, and then I have followed it up with MBA from Narsi Monji Institute of Management, Mumbai. I have worked in prestigious organizations like Mahindra and Mahindra, Raymond Limited, HCL Services, and Nord Anglia Education, which is a K-12 education organization. The first 12 years of my career were into various business roles, right from manufacturing, shop floor, to sales and marketing, to strategy, and working with the president. And last 13 plus years are purely into HR domain. I'm happy to start today's session. Today, I'll be giving you an overview of HR analytics and business impact. So let us understand the flow, for the next 30 minutes. We're going to start with a little bit of background, which will help us understand the need for HR analytics, from where we will understand what is definition of HR analytics, the various maturity levels involved, how do we add value, and what could be the barriers to success and the broad capabilities. So in this way, we will be trying to understand the topic of HR analytics and its impact to business. First and foremost, you must have all read through the book of Most Effective Manager by Stephen Covey, which is one of the habits, 7 habits, where he talks as begin with end in mind. Let's take an example. For example, there is an IT services and consulting firm. So, what will be their objective? Their objective obviously would be to grow the intellectual property, because the more the intellectual property that they own, they will be able to generate higher revenue and thereby grow in the marketplace. Now, how will the intellectual property grow? Obviously, it will happen when they have a good amount of developers, the software developers. So, therefore, in the entire organization structure, if you see, one of the critical job roles would be that of the developers. Let's assume that there are about 950 such developers working in an ABC random organization. Now let's see if this is happening. If resignation rate for developers has increased from 6% to 15% in the last 6 months, and I'm sure all of you have come across this article, which is in way vogue now, the great resignation. So what, my dear friends, what does this mean? If a resignation rate has moved from 6 to 15%, definitely it is now a threat to growing the IP. And if the IP does not grow, then the revenue services will not grow, and therefore the company will face huge challenges. So while at an overall level we understand that retention of key talent is important, so this number going from 6% to 15% is one of the major indicators from a business perspective. Look at this particular slide, which gives us a summary of how there are people running away, and layoffs happening. So look at these layoffs which have happened in FY23. More than 43,399 people have lost their jobs across the world because of startups. So that means in a startup environment, initially there is a hiring spree, and over a period of time, you find that many people are not able to continue, or the management is not able to sustain. Right? In India, it's alone 5,670 approximately people have lost their job or have been laid off in this startup environment. So this is very important for all of us to understand what are the factors which impact this, and how as a business management or a business owner, you it'll impact your business. Conventionally, if we talk about any imperative, HR imperative, for example, right now we are talking about retention or talent attraction of a particular company, then the strategic imperative would be retention. And in this particular template we try to fill up that what are the workforce implications, and to retain them what are the interventions that we'll have to do. But this is a very conventional mode, right? For example, if we were to do a retention basics program, then what will we say? That why is retention important for any organization? I'm sure all of us understand that if people continue, that means there is stability, they will hold the knowledge, the expertise will stay within the organization. And why is this important? Because if all these people are there and they continue with us, there is higher chances of growth in the business. And hence, from a management perspective, who do we want to retain? Do we want to retain all the employees? Probably not. Because we would like to focus on people who are good performers and above, people who have high potential, people who have critical skills, or people who possess certain scarce skills. Right? Like for example, today mean stack developer is a very rare skill today. To get somebody working on all mean stack is difficult. So such scarce skills people we would like to retain. And therefore, what would be the retention strategy options? So there could be plenty. I have just listed a few over here, which says, for example, differentiated reward or better onboarding practices, look at their training and development, and in some terms, be able to predict flight risk. While all this, if you see, is good to understand from a 30,000 feet. But from HR analytics perspective, or also it is known as people analytics perspective, for the company, the HR team has to understand and management has to understand from a 1,000 feet level. 30,000 feet is not really going to help them understand better. So that means what do they need to do? So let us try to understand the same problem of attrition from a different perspective. So we said that 950, was the entire cohort, and the resignation increased from 6% to 15%. So if we were to split it up, what we get here is we get the breakup of 950 people, of which 640 are good or very good, and 310 are average or poor performers. Now this will strike to you that if we take that 15%, is that 15% on 950? Then what is it on 640 and what is it on 310? Because that is the question which is most important. Similarly, we can also divide the 950 further into new wave skill set or the legacy skill set. So there are about 215 people in the new wave skill set and 425 in the legacy skill set. So this again strikes to us that if attrition has increased to 15%, which segment is getting impacted, higher. So you see further on this. So the resignation rate of 15% is now further broken down. And at one point, if you said that 15% was okay, but now look at it. At your good and very good performers are leaving at the rate of 19%. Now this is alarming, right? And only 7% of your average and poor performers are leaving. So therefore, you see, never go from a 30,000 feet view. In HR, it is important to dive deeper to understand really the pulse of the organization and see what are the strategic levers which will enable the growth and not disable the growth. Similarly, you can see 18% of new wave skill set we have lost. Now that is too risky because going back to the market and hiring the new wave skill set will again take a lot of time, will take a lot of money, right? And you will lose the entire project during that period. So it is important for us to understand how we can look at 15% and break it to understand 19 and 18%, which are far more relevant and significant. This, my dear friends, is just one small, tiny aspect of HR analytics and its importance. So
Sir,
obviously, one
sir, we are not able, not slide is not moving.
slide is not moving. it moving now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. So, if having understood the problem better, we are now able to come with customized solutions. So, that is the power of HR analytics. So, you see, for very good performers, attrition or the new wave skill attrition, we can come up with reward and flexibility strategy. Whereas for the average and poor performers or the legacy skill set people, we can come with training and development strategy. So at the end of the day, in any particular business, the HR budget is a limited budget. So we should understand what is the most optimum way of utilizing that budget so that we are able to maximize the revenues and maximize the returns. So return on investment is one of the critical aspects. So now you see, once they have done this in that particular ABC company, the after doing targeted programs, they found that there is a significant improvement in the resignation rate. It has come down, and more importantly, the two buckets which are very important, there is a significant reduction of 7% and 8%. So this way, we are able to add a lot of value to the business, and that's where the CEO of the organization starts appreciating HR as a function, and hence the HR is one of the critical builders of the organization. Let us look at a P&L. I'm sure all of you understand principles of basic understanding of profit and loss statement, which is called as P&L. And generally, administrative expenses will cover the HR costs. So here are all the HR costs. Sample I'm listed here: salaries and wages, training and development, reward and retention, etc. But more importantly, if you see the example that I explained now, if you're able to do HR analytics and go down to depth, and if you have retained the right set of people, it not only contributes in your budget management, but also helps in taking the sales up. So HR as a function directly contributes to top line as well as bottom line, and hence is one of the most important functions today with a business. So I hope this background helps you to appreciate the need for HR analytics. So now let us understand what do we mean or define by HR analytics. This is a classical definition: utilizing investigative techniques to understand the contribution that people make to business performance. So I need not read the slide, but what you understand from here is HR analytics is a function which is enabling data driven decision making. So conventionally, decision is taken on either subjective base or influence base, but these could have its own risks and challenges. But if a decision is taken based on data, then there are chances of success are much higher, and hence the importance to analyze HR analytics. Let's look at the maturity levels. There are 5 levels of maturity, and as an entrepreneur, having your own family run business, or if you're pursuing your management, you need to understand all these 5 levels, because that is where you will be able to maximize the return on HR. The first level is called as operational level. Second is descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. If you see here, the first two are called as workforce reporting. And in today's context, 90 to 95% of the organizations are only in level 1 or level 2 stage of maturity. They are largely only process oriented, right? But the great companies, the companies that stand out away, and if you see the top 10% companies in the world or in India, they have advanced to HR analytics, where they add a lot of value through insight. And hence they are able, because that gives them a project focus. So it is important for companies to get into diagnostic phase, and from there move up further to prescriptive phase. So the next question is this a limited scope or an unlimited scope? So if you see here, the HR analytics is an integral part of organizational analytics, and organizational analytics is integral part of community analytics, and community can be further expanded to a particular location, to a particular region, to a particular geography, and then for to a nation, and then multi-nation, and you can divide. So there is limitless scope of HR analytics as you can do. Whereas if you don't perform any analytics, obviously, the decision making is challenging and it becomes a limited scope. So this helps you to understand the scope of HR analytics. Let's look at now how do we add value. So I'm sure most of you who are running the organizations all know that there are, business strategy is one of the key functions which enables or defines the path towards the next 3 year to 5 year growth. And business strategy, the HR process and function, and the workforce issues. When all these three combine together, it leads to HR analytics strategy. Let's try to understand this better. I have given one sample for one of the organizations. Now, this can vary from organization to organization. Let's see this. Let's look at the top. First, we start with vision, mission, and goals. That is the stated goals. From vision, mission, and goals, we derive the business strategy. And as an HR department, like any other department, be it finance, sales and marketing, or operations, from the business strategy, we derive our own respective strategy. In HR terms, it is called as people plan. And from the people plan becomes the input towards HR analytics strategy. Now you see on the right top corner, it is also mentioned as PDCA. So what does PDCA stand for? It stands for plan, do, check, and act. That means this strategy document that you prepare, is not cast in stone for 3 years to 5 years. It's a dynamic document, or rather, it should be a dynamic document because a lot of forces in the environment are changing. There could be political scenario change, economical scenario change, technological scenario change, social change. So many changes are there. So the strategic workforce plan has to be reviewed on an ongoing basis and to ensure that our people plan is aligned to the business strategy and the business strategy plan is aligned to the goals. So this is one of the key verticals. Now, the other side is HR process and function. Definitely, these are all functions that HR performs: staffing, learning and development, performance management. So, it's important to understand the effectiveness and efficiency of each of these functions. And therefore, they become an input to HR analytics strategy. On the left side, if you focus, there are workforce issues. So, attraction, diversity, staff turnover, and management. What do you mean by attraction? Attraction is essentially the entire talent pool which is there in the world. How, as an organization, we can attract the best talent to work for us. Diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) is one of the core, principles on which the HR people plan should be prepared. And what are the challenging assumptions from a business perspective? If you see, workforce stability versus profit. So either I can keep, focusing on only profit, but I'll have instability in my workforce. Or, for example, in place like Mumbai, or in places like Bengaluru, where there are a lot of travel, is it commute distance versus retention? Because a lot of today's generation will decide the workplace location based on the commute distance also as one of the factors apart from the other factors. So as these inputs are very important from an HR person to be able to understand and analyze all of this, so that in return they can give the right people plan and then the right business strategy and thereby enable directly contributing to the stated goals. Now, how do we make these things happen? For example, if we have understood that we need to work on the commute distance versus retention, then some program initiatives can be run, like graduate scheme or agile working, and many more such new initiatives can be put in place, which will be targeted and focused towards the output and not just necessarily from an HR perspective perform a function. Let's move further. So, what do we mean by the value added HR analytics? So, here we need to remember there are three considerations. First and foremost is any in analytics that I perform in any function, whether it is HR or it is in marketing or any other function, it should be insightful. That means it should be able to give me a sense of a new knowledge, something that I was not aware of. It should be relevant and contemporary, and it should be actionable. So, this insightful, relevant, and actionable is very important to deliver high potential. Now, having understood this, we also definitely need to know for whom should we do this. As we started off with the business example, you saw that the attrition was 15%, but when we analyzed and applied HR analytics, we understood where the real problem was. So it is important to understand and prioritize our effort on critical employee segments and not do any everything for everyone. This general janta mantra is not going to help us. So important to understand employee segments, and similarly, we need to know how we are differentiating by the audience segment, because every audience is different, and how our proposition, how is it getting differentiated, is important. So if all these three considerations are there, then only you will be able to do value added HR analytics and not just plain HR analytics. Let's take a quick example over here. I have taken on the right axis, the x-axis business impact, and on the y-axis I've got uniqueness. So on the left side there is low business impact and low uniqueness. On the right extreme is high business impact and high uniqueness. So if you see this framework of 2 by 2 matrix, you can understand the blue boxes represent types of human capital. So there are four types of human capital as an example: idiosyncratic, mission critical, general, and business specific. What do we mean by this? Let's look at an example. It will help you understand better. So idiosyncratic means, for example, people who are doing conventional work, same work over a longer period of time. For example, programs even still today in IT language run on C, C++. So there are people, legacy people who are working on these systems. So they are idiosyncratic, correct? So what happens? They are unique, but not generally critical to business, right? Let's look at mission critical. Mission critical is 30 goals a footballer scores in one season. Imagine what will happen. I mean, that guy will be purchased by any club for millions and millions of dollars, because this is a huge achievement, right? Scoring 30 goals by a footballer in only one season. So therefore, this kind of resource becomes a mission critical for our organization also. So we will also go and get such people. General is basically administrative staff. What do we mean by administrative staff? They are common and fairly replaceable, right? So that means there is nothing to worry from an HR perspective. Okay, if we have lost a person who has moved on, then we will be able to replace. And the last is basically business specific. So there are certain skills for which you need to hire only that kind of person. So for example, in airline industry, pilots, it's a very, very business specific skill. You can hire every other staff, but if you don't hire pilot, you will never be able to fly the plane, right? So it's a high business impact over there. So in this way, HR should be able to break down their workforce and their human capital and identifies these buckets, so that the people strategy or the people plan can be focused accordingly on each bucket, because we need to get the maximum out of every individual, which is measured in terms of per person revenue, PPR, or per person cost, PPC. So this is a very two important parameters for any business to track the success from an HR perspective. Pardon me for this is the only slide which is a bit text heavy, but here I've tried to give an example of audience segments, because we understood earlier the customer segments. Now we are talking about the audience segments. So let's say the audience from the company are HR executives, HR business partner, line manager, senior management, and shareholders. If you go through this slide, what you will understand is what as an organization we want, and what as an individual or as audience segment they need are two different things. Okay, so for example, I'll take one. For example, if you look at the HR executive, their job is basically what they need: meaningful, trusted information and insight. Whereas what we expect as a management, we expect to gain support and credibility, and to ensure HR analytics is a key input into HR decision making. So essentially, we want them to work on HR analytics where they're looking at a meaningful, trusted data. So as an example, what it means is within 5 years, 40% of workers with a critical skill set will be eligible to retire. Now, this is a very significant input. If the HR executive is not able to give this information well in time, Imagine at the end of 5 years, if we as an organization or a management lose 40% of our critical staff, what will happen to business? I'm sure all of you have answered in your own mind that the business will take a big hit, the revenues will drop, or it will create a huge disaster. And therefore, such meaningful insights are to be given from HR executive, and that's why value added HR analytics. I hope I have been able to give you some example and some thoughts on this. So, how do we approach them? So, as I told you, there are three steps to it: insightful, relevant, and actionable. What is insightful is basically telling your audience something that they didn't know already, right? I mean, you're sitting on tons and tons of data, you're sitting on so many spreadsheets, but ability to derive, that data into an information is something insightful, right? And then relevant, something that really matters. We do not want to know everything and anything that happens in the world because it does not impact our business today, but definitely anything that impacts my business today I need to know. So therefore relevant. And lastly is actionable, which is basically ability to trigger a meaningful intervention so that every buck that we spend has a value or will deliver the maximum value that it can. As in the beginning I mentioned, every function has a limited budget. It's not that we have an open pot from where we can keep on digging money, but with a limited resource, how do we maximize? So this is the way we should approach value added HR analytics. Coming to the second last topic is barriers to success. Let's try and understand this. I told you, earlier that there are 5 stages of maturity, and 90% of the organizations are stuck at level 2, between level 1 and level 2. They are not able to move to third, fourth, and fifth level. So, what could be those barriers? Let's understand. Fundamental barrier is of mindset. Most of the management, okay, whether it is a family run business or any other organization, the mindset is of management is more towards executing reporting. So they just want day by day data. That, for example, if there are 100 staff, they just need a data on everyday basis that out of 100 how many came, out of 100 how many came. So that's basically reporting. So somebody who is in the administrative department or HR department will just report. That 195 came, 98 came, 97 came, and they just look at that and then leave it. And that mindset shift, if you are able to do, you will be able to see significant change in your business growth and revenues. And the one that can make it happen is through HR analytics or people analytics. So if you see on both the sides, capacity, capability, and technology remains the same. Most of the organizations will be using these three things, but what makes a company move towards HR analytics is the putting the right set of people, trained people in the department through executive support, and creating those dashboards. Very important to have HR dashboards. Later on I'll show you a sample of the HR dashboard so that those become the reporting foundations, unlike just the pure play metrics, because HR metrics will lead to only reporting. And therefore, to summarize, it is the shift from reporting to analytics is what will make the success. And this is the most common barrier that we have come across many of the organizations today. And what are the other data failure points that can happen? If you see, there is on the x-axis diminishing data integrity, and on the y-axis data accuracy is there. Obviously, every organization or HR department must aim for 100% accuracy of data. So if you see the green portion, it reflects perfection. But as you move more towards the right, then you will see the failure points increases. And what are those various failure points? Subjectivity of data. That means some companies have not invested in the right HR tools, saying that it probably is cost heavy for us, or I don't think we need to focus on this analytics at this stage. So a lot of subjectivity comes in, and once subjectivity is there, the accuracy levels drop. Timing. So if, for example, I have to make an offer in next 15 days and I generate the offer only after 30 days, do you think the outside candidates will wait for you to wait for 30 days to make an offer? So timing is important game. So I need to understand HR analytic and its importance of timing. Of course, we talked about data capture and the reporting accuracy, because if the right set of tools and right set of people are not trained on this, then we all know this famous philosophy: garbage in is garbage out. So never work on garbage. Try to get the right set of data so that you will be able to deliver higher and better value. So this is sample of the data failure points. Now let's come to the last part, which talks about the broad capabilities. There's basically the people capabilities. And you will be surprised to see that in one of the IBM surveys, they found out that almost 80% of the companies today have an urgent need for HR analytics. So earlier, if you see, the HR department itself has transitioned a lot. Earlier, it was called as administrative department. Then they converted it into personnel department. From personnel department, they converted it into HR department. But now it is time to move on and have HR analytics as an integral part of the HR department. And companies have to invest in this to see themselves stand out better. And you see, 80% need have realized the need. More significant, if you see, is 85% of the organizations have reported little or no analytical capability in HR. So this is a mind-boggling figure. And that's why, if you see, imagine a startup situation. In most of the startups that I have been advising or I have been consulting, many of the startup founders say that HR is just an administrative function to just pass the payroll or just to get people, and therefore I will not hire anybody. Let's continue with one of the junior executives. What they don't realize is this is like sowing a seed. If you don't sow the seed in the early stages, you will not be able to bear the fruits when the time passes. Same is the case with HR also. If you don't sow HR in your organization at the early stage, then you will not be able to reap the fruits when the organization is becoming bigger. At that time, you will be doing more of transaction related HR work, and thereby reducing the value of the organization. So, my request and suggestion to all the entrepreneurs and students, that in future always build HR equivalent to any other function right from day one, and more so in HR, invest on people to build this HR analytics. And therefore, this course that we are going to run is going to be very significant in building the HR analytics, which will lead to significant impact on business growth and sustained business growth, not just growth. That's the important over here. Look at some of the statements, from the capability context. CEOs now have understood that they need to depend on companies' human resources to achieve success. Business don't create value, people do. That is the real important point to understand here. Right? It is the people, and the organization consists of all people. If all people are driving value, then business will generate better revenues in the future. In the last decade or so, CEOs, there has been a major shift, and HR function is no more the last function. Earlier, if you want to count all the functions, probably finance functions, sales, marketing functions may come ahead of HR. But now they have realized that HR function is one of the critical functions from a business success point of view. There are enough examples today in India and across the globe where HR heads have become business heads. However, has HR reached its peak? Not at all. It is just touched the surface of the iceberg, and there is a lot which needs to be done in terms of HR function. And therefore, all HR team has to work continuously to be able to build on the HR analytics. Lastly, I want to show you a sample dashboard. Look at this nice dashboard from HR employee statistics. So it gives you various things. For example, it talks about overtime cost. It tells you employee count. It tells you offer acceptance rate, gender diversity ratio, average time to hire, cost per hire, so on. So many value added information which helps the management to drive the HR function and thereby the company in the right direction, aligned to business goals, and therefore achieving whatever are the target things. So this is my small session which I wanted to talk about HR analytics and its huge impact on business. and therefore important for us to understand this more in depth going forward. I would like to request Mr. Shri Yatish ji to play the small video.
Question. How does people analytics shape the business? HR analytics can add enormous value for organizations, mainly because it enables them to measure the business impact of people policies. In fact, by applying complex statistical analysis, HR analysis can help you predict how the workforce will change in the future. In turn, this enables managers to measure the financial impact of human resources practices, which is seen as the holy grail of HR analytics. Typically, we often measure the impact of HR on bottom line performance by calculating a return on investment, ROI, and this is the most powerful way for HR to increase its strategic influence. On top of this, knowing the impact of HR policies will also help HR to become a strategic partner and get rid of its soft image by simply taking the guesswork out of HR and by aligning its strategy with business goals and by helping it quantify the value it adds to the business. So, what is HR analytics about? HR analytics is about identifying the people-related drivers of business performance. Through identification of these people drivers, management is based on facts, not on guesswork. Or, to put in the words of Edward Deming, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. One example of effectively leveraging HR analytics is that of a subsidiary of a large Dutch retailer in fast-moving consumer goods, who used people analytics to research the effects of investments in training and development on business outcomes. In doing so, the researchers found that training the employees of a shop has a positive impact on the financial performance of that particular shop, reaching a return on investment of more than 400% after one training only. Another example is that of PostNL, a Dutch postal company who used people analytics to design the ideal profile of a mail carrier. Thanks to this analysis, PostNL optimized its recruitment process and reduced its recruitment costs, and they are now able to target from the beginning the right people for this job. Fun fact, the ideal profile is actually the one of an older man with a dog because he would be strong, fit enough, friendly, and would not mind being outside even during bad weather. That being said, that was today's Bite, in which you've learned about the way HR analytics shapes businesses by taking the guesswork out of it and therefore by making decision-making fact-based and in doing so, adding value to the organization.
I think the video got set up.
Thank you, Yatish ji, and thank you, everybody.
So I thank you everyone, and as well as I also would like to say that the people are going to watch later. I think so there was some technical fault was there, slide was were not moving. So in case they want to learn more or want to have information, they can visit Kuril Founders B School website and directly connect with Professor Tupsakri, and they can interact with him, as well as if you want to take admission in our entrepreneurship and innovation management postgraduate diploma. Eligibility criteria is they should have 60% in their graduation, and they can visit to our website, and or otherwise they can write to us or call up on the number which is given below this screen. Okay, so I thank you everyone, and I thank you Professor Tupsakari for coming and giving us insight on this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.